Okay, we're in section 28 of the notes. It's the analytic geometry. We covered this section. We covered the rectangular coordinate system, points in the plane, midpoint, distance. Hopefully that stuff is well understood at this point. Hopefully the examples kind of hammered this across to you, what we want you to be able to do, and certainly what's expected of you. So we went through a bunch of examples. And again, I'm hoping that you've understood that material, you've studied it, and you're ready to do it on your own. Right? I'm hoping you've done the homework. I'm going to move to the whiteboard and I'll do this stuff at the whiteboard. All right. So I'm going to do another share with you. And just give me a moment to get it started up. And the expectation is you have your notes out and that you have your notebook out with the work problems. All right. So give me 1 minute. Okay, so just to remind you, we're in section 28 of the notes. And we're doing the homework. Okay, so number one says graph the ordered pairs. So first thing I do is just a rough picture. I'm not going to say it's going to be the best picture, but an idea that sort of like an abstraction of what this means. And they give me 2 points. The points they give me, I'll call P1. That's the first point I'm seeing, -3, -1. I'll plot that point. So 1, 2, 3. That's 3 to the left and 1 down. That point's right there. All right. Now what's the other point? The other point, P2, is -6, -5. Granted, I hope you don't see there's too much counting, but I have to go 6 left and then 5 down. So that's 4, 5, 6, 2, 3, 4, 5. So over here somewhere. All right. Let me label this for you. This is P2, and this over here is P1. All right. So I'll read that to you. It says, graph the ordered pairs. The first ordered pair we graphed was P1, which is -3, -1. That means move left 3, down 1. I did that. This is -6, -5. Move 6 left and then down 5. This is, relatively speaking, I'm not going to say it's terribly accurate, but it represents what we need to do, which is graph those points. Now it says determine the distance between those 2 points. Now, distance between those 2 points is this thing over here. Again, there's many ways to do it. You can do it by a triangle. I'll do it by formula. I'm going to write the distance formula down for you. The distance, I'll write this one down for you. So it's going to be x2 minus x1. It's a formula that we discussed in class, really the Pythagorean theorem. And then y2 minus y1. All right. So I'm going to outline what I mean by this. In P1, these points over here, like P1, it's really x1 comma y1, and P2 is really x2 comma y2. So I'm just going to plug it into the formula. D equals, and let's take a look. So it's going to be x2, right? And what's x2 minus 6? And then it's going to be minus a -3, which is +3. We need to square that. Then what do I get? Well, y2 is -5 minus a -1, which is +1. And we're going to square that. Let's go through that. And what do you get? Again, we have an answer, we can check it. The first guy is going to be -6 + 3, which is -3. When you square that, you get 9. Plus -5 + 1 is 4. When you square that, you get 16. So D, 9 and 16 is 25. So the distance is 5. Right? Now, if you want to do this by triangle, it's going to kind of depend on your ability to draw the triangle. And, kind of looking at it, I'm saying the sides of these things. I guess if you do a physical right triangle over here, 3, 4. And if you use Pythagorean theorem, it's a 3, 4, 5. It's a Pythagorean triplet. But if you use Pythagorean theorem, 3 squared plus 4 squared, and we just did that, 9 plus 16, 25. And the root of 25 is, of course, 5. So I'm pretty comfortable I got the distance. All right. They also want the midpoint. And what's the midpoint? It's going to be the dead center. Again, if you draw a good picture, you could read it. I'm just going to write down the midpoint as a formula, though. And push this up a little tiny bit. And midpoint, basically just an average. That's all it is. So the midpoint is going to be the average, which means I'm going to add the x's together, x1 plus x2, and divide through by 2. That will be the x-coordinate. And then y1 plus y2. I'm just adding the points together and dividing through by 2. Well, this should be relatively simple. Let's take a look at it. And again, we'll look at the picture later. Most students tend to use formulas. So I'm going to add the x together. And, minus 6 minus 3 is minus 9 over 2. And if I add the y's together, minus 5 minus 1 is minus 6 divided by 2. And I'm going to write this a little bit differently. I'm going to write this as minus 9 halves, how much I can do about that, and minus 3. That's the midpoint. By the way, this is the distance over here. So I drew the picture. I found the distance by formula. I also did it by drawing a triangle. I just haven't done the midpoint yet. So look at the midpoint. I'm kind of looking at it. So the midpoint between those 2 points is over here somewhere. And this is where a problem where I'd say if you're not drawing a very good picture, it's going to be really hard to read it. But I think if you're looking at, I'm pretty sure you'll agree the y at least is minus 3. Exactly what you get from the formula. What you may not agree with is that minus 9 halves. Well, what's minus 9 halves? Minus 4.5. If you look, trace this up. And yeah, I know it's not easy. It's over here somewhere. But granted, I'm not saying my graph is great, but it certainly just abstractly, it does look about minus 4.5. All right. Let's look at the key though. So is it possible to make a mistake? It says the distance is 5. We got that correct. It says the midpoint is minus 9 halves, comma minus 3. So we visualized. I tend to like formulas. I think visualizations take, at least if I have to draw an accurate picture, it takes time to do that. The formulas are really nice and convenient. All right, let's go to number 2. Push this up. Now, again, if for students we're just going too fast, my suspicion you haven't done the work yet. You haven't studied, gone through the examples, and made sense of the material. And certainly have done the homework, of course. All right. However, if you want, you can watch this video off schedule, and you can watch that at the end of the week if you like. That way you can pause it, fast forward it, whatever you like. I'm going to number 2. And number 2 says find the distance to the nearest hundredth between the given points. I'll write this down. P1. P1 is 5, comma minus 4. I want to point out what this means to me. This is x1, and this is y1. And P2, I'm just reading this from the notes, is the point 3, comma minus 1. This is going to be x2, it's a second point, and this will be y2. Well, what's the formula? Distance. It's going to be x2 minus x1 squared. Yes, you need to know the formula. It's basically the Pythagorean theorem. Y2 minus y1 squared. Let's write this down. And what's x2? 3. Minus, what's x1? 5. We'll do the arithmetic later. What's y2? Minus 1. And what's y1? Minus 4. So minus minus 4 is plus 4. Let's keep going through it. And what do you get? 3 minus 5 is minus 2. But when you square minus 2, you get 4. Plus, minus 1 plus 4 is 3. But when you square 3, you get 9. So I get the square root of 13. All right. So I'm going to claim that's the distance. But they want me to round it to the nearest 100th. So what I'm going to suggest you is use your calculator to do that. So the square root of 13 on your calculator to the nearest 100th, which means 2 decimal places, would be 3.61. All right. If you're having trouble using your calculator, like you don't know how to use it, all I can say is come by during office hours and we can help you with that. All right. In other words, we can, turn the camera on, look at your calculator, give you suggestions. You should know how to use a calculator appropriately. All right, I'm going to go to the next one, which says then find the coordinates of the midpoint of the line segment connecting those 2 points. Well, that's pretty easy too. I'll point out what I mean by that. The midpoint, I'll write the formula down for you. x2 plus x1, it's basically just an average. y2 plus y1, And again, basically just an average. Not basically, it is an average. So what's a midpoint? What's a midpoint going to be? Well, just add the x coordinates together. And what's 5 plus 3? 8, right? And what's 8 divided by 2? 4. Look at the key later. Now I'm going to add the y coordinates together. Minus 4 minus 1 is minus 5. And when you divide that by 2, you get minus 5 over 2. All right. So I got the distance, got the midpoint. Let me look at my answer, how I did. And I'm seeing this. I'm seeing this. I'm seeing this. All right. Again, if you want to draw that, you can. They didn't ask me to do that, but you can draw it if you want. Let's go to number 3. And we're just reinforcing hopefully what you've learned in the lecture. All right. So number 3, again, let me read this thing. And we've done an example like this in class, but they read this and they don't know what's being asked of them. And that's, something you want to work on. So we have minus x squared minus 2x plus 3. Right? We've seen those before. And they said, you want to graph the ordered pairs. And what they give me is they give me 2 x values. So what we've done in class, we made a table up. We have an x value and a y value, but they've given me the x values. They say minus 1 and they said 2. So what I like to do is I'd like to figure out what the y is by doing what I've done in the past, which is just basically plugging it in. I'm going to parenthesize the variable and I'm going to do the arithmetic. What's the value of the variable here? Minus 1. All right, so let me do that for you. Well, this is going to give me minus 1 plus 2 plus 3. Very simple evaluation. What's that going to give me? 4. Let's do the next one. Y will equal, again, parenthesize the variable. Whoops, I jumped too quickly there. Plug in the value of the variable, which is 2. What do you get there? Minus 4 plus 3. What does that give you? 3. So again, you want to read that again. It says, they say graph the ordered pair. Well, I got 2. The ordered pairs I have now, P1 is minus 1 comma 4. P2 is going to be 2, 3. I have to graph those. All right, I push this up a little tiny bit. I'm going to graph those. Let's do it. P1 is 1 left, 4 up. It's right here. What's P2? 2 to the right, 3 up. Let's see, right over here. All right, let me label this for you. This is P1. This is P2. All right, so I graph those 2 points. Now, what do they want me to come up with here? They want me to get the distance. First of all, I want to make sure I copied this correctly because I'm looking at my key and I'm kind of concerned about that now. And minus x squared minus 2x plus 3. And they got minus 1 and 2. Let me see if I've done that right. Minus 1 squared. That's going to be 1. It's minus 1. And then that's going to be plus 2. 4. I did that okay. And let's see if we did 2 okay. I'm just looking at my work, by the way. It's important you look back at your work too. It's important you have a record of your work. You have something to look at. And let me see, I plugged it in right. So I got minus 4. I see my mistake now. And I clearly see it. All right. And someone says, why do you see it? I'm looking at it and I made a mistake somewhere. I'm going to point out what the mistake is. The mistake is over here. Minus 4 is minus 8. And minus 8 plus 3 is actually minus 5. I made a mistake. I want to correct it. It's not going to be the first or the last mistake. This is minus 5. All right. Again, it could be another mistake. I'm not saying it's not. Push that up. And I'm going to just, I know I did P2 wrong. I got to erase it now. And back and erase it. This is not correct. And it's 2 minus 5, isn't it? So 2 over and then 5 down. So that's approximately where P2 is. All right, now what do they want me to do? All right, they say graph the ordered pairs. Well, I've done that. They want me to find the distance. I'll write this down for you. This is x1, minus 1. This is I'm sorry. I'm really daydreaming here, aren't I? It's y1. It's xy. This is x2. This is y2. Well, I'm getting better with the formulas. What's d equal? Just writing it down. So let's see. It's going to be x2, which is 2, minus x1. Minus or minus 1 is plus 1. Then what is going to be? Minus 5 minus 4. I got to do the arithmetic. 2 plus 1 is 3. 3 squared is 9. Let's see. Minus 5 minus 4 is minus 9. Minus 9 squared is 81. So d is going to be the square root of 90. However, they said I should approximate it. So the belief again is use a calculator. On your calculator, do the square root of 90 and round it off to the nearest, let me read that in the notes, nearest hundredth, which means 2 decimal places. Okay, that's done. What else did they ask me to do? They asked me to find the midpoint. Well, that's fairly simple, all right? Midpoint, all I do is add the coordinates together and divide by 2. Well, minus 1 plus 2, these are the x's, is going to be 1 over 2. 4 plus minus 5 is minus 1 over 2. Granted, mistakes happen. That's why we give you a key. We want you to look at the key. What did I say the distance is? Root 90 approximated to 9.49. What did I say the midpoint is? 1/2, comma, minus 1/2. All right, let's go to the next question, which is number 4. And number 4 says find the distance in the nearest hundredth between the given points, then find the coordinates of the midpoint. Well, it's basically just practicing a formula. Let's put down P1. They did not ask me to graph it. You can do that if you want. I want to point out what this means. This is x1. This is y1. They give me P2. What's P2? P2 is 7.2, comma, minus 3.1. This is going to be x2, y2. And what they want to do, compute the distance, the nearest hundredth, and also find the coordinates of the midpoint. All right. So what I'm going to do is just do the formula. And I realize sometimes I can't do the arithmetic. Well, you're allowed to use calculators. So what's it going to be? All right, let's write this down. So it's going to be 7.2 minus a minus 3.5, which is plus 3.5 squared. All right, let's keep going. Plus, let's see, minus 3.1 minus 4.6 squared. Well, my recommendation is use a calculator. Actually use a calculator to do that. In other words, on a calculator, do 7.2 plus 3.5, square it. Also do minus 3.1 minus 4.6 and square it, and then add those two numbers together. And I'm hopeful if you did that, you would get 173.78. Let me repeat this. If you're having trouble using a calculator, you don't want to use a calculator, come by during office hours and I'll try to help you with that. But they said approximate this thing, right? So again, you need to use calculator. A calculator, that'd be approximately 13.18. All right, I'm going to do the midpoint. We'll look at the key later. What's the midpoint? Add those two numbers together. Well, that's not so bad, right? Maybe I should do this one by hand. So I'm going to add points together. So I'm going to write 7.2 minus 3.5. What would that give you? 3.7. Yep. If you divide 3.7 by 2, right, you get 1.5 and then 0.35, 1.85. Put it over here. Again, you're allowed to use a calculator. Let me add the other ones together, which is 4.6 minus 3.1. That's going to be 1.5. And if you divide that by 2, what do you get? 0.75. They asked for midpoint and they asked for distance on approximate to 2. Let's look at the key. What do I see? This, and I see this. I'm feeling good about that. All right, let me switch screens now. And I'm going to give you another screen to share with you. And I'm going to go back to my notes. And again, I know some people are sick and tired of seeing this, but we want to go back to Sage, right? So we just completed a set of problems. Which didn't take long, and for the most part, studying at this level really shouldn't take that long, all right? So I'm opening up a Sage that my browser's launching now, and I'm gonna go to that website, sagemath.org, and I'm gonna do the CoCalc. CoCalc is an online version of Sage. You don't have to install any software to run that. They're using other people's computers though, so it could be slow. And sometimes you do this and it won't even let you do a computation or even simple ones. So the point of this is, it'd be nice if you could learn how to use software and maybe a little bit of coding information as well. And again, we've been doing this for some time now. And we're creating a Sage worksheet. It does take time to load sometimes. And I noticed today is a particularly slow day. There it goes. All right, what am I going to do? Type in the commands. Reset. Remember, shift return. I got that done. And now I got to point this out. This looks like a familiar computation, right? I'll point out where it's coming from. You know what I did? I copy pasted, right? And I'll hit the return, right? I'm sorry, shift return. And what do I got to get that? Now I'm going to put out where it's coming from. So let's go back over the notes and look back. Ooh, right here. So what am I doing? Typing this in. Exactly the computation I wrote on the whiteboard before. 7.2 minus the minus 3.5 is 7.2 plus 3.5. The other one is, minus 3.1 minus 4.6. I'm doing the computation all in one shot. What do you get? Well, you get something with a lot of digits in it. I don't need all those digits. How many digits do I need to the nearest 100th? And what would that be? 13.18. And I'm seeing that right over there. All right. Again, it's important you learn how to use a computer. It's get your feet wet to coding. I think that pretty much covers that section there. I don't think there's much more information over there. All right. Thank you.